Citizen in B tier. That earns you a thumbs down on the video.
I can't figure out whether you're a dumbass or just full of shit.
A downvote for trashing Citizen.
You ranked Casio higher than Citizen. Are you in middle school?
What is wrong with you? Citizen should be in S-class. You need to up your Citizen research, clown.
Was I too harsh on Citizen? I did a little affordable watch brand tier list video in December last year, and it's fair to say that Citizen fans weren't too pleased with that brand's placing. Indeed, based on my limited experience with some Citizen watches, I placed them towards the top of B tier. Was that a mistake though? Should I have put them higher, A or even S tier perhaps? Well, I figured that's what we'd explore today. I've grabbed myself another Citizen to take a look at. Thanks to Amazon for covering the cost of it. You can check the link in the video description for more information on that arrangement. Essentially, I can do and say what I want, which is great. How does this watch line up with my previous experiences then? I think the best place to start is my original reasoning for their ranking spot. While I liked the physical build quality of the few watches I'd handled until that point, Citizen didn't have a wide catalogue of men's watches below £200 for starters, which was the designated price point for that video. Very few of which fitted my slim wrist, as their sub 41mm collection was very limited indeed. As far as I can tell, in the UK, both of those factors still ring true. In other territories, this may vary. I'm sure for many of you watching, price and size aren't so important. Though I did also mention the alignment issues that I'd had with their pieces before. Something I failed to mention was that I'm not a fan of their overall aesthetic. When scrolling through their watches, I don't find myself drawn to them very often, though that is arguably personal preference. Functionally though, many of their pieces do have some of my favourite features, including this one in front of me. This model is the BM7360-82L, also referred to as one of their Super Titanium watches. I picked this one because it's quite thin, and I'm a big fan of this material too, which is where we'll begin. This Super Titanium is advertised as titanium that's been treated with a proprietary coating to improve its scratch resistance. This appears to be one of the more affordable options with this special surface, with some of the alternatives on the Citizen website retailing for far more than the approximate £220 price point that you can grab this one for. I'll affiliate link it in the description for your convenience. I have to say, I'm impressed with this material so far, as it has the inherent lightweight benefits of titanium that I'm familiar with, along with more precise finishing than some of the titanium watches I've covered in days past. It also does seem to be more scratch resistant, as it's yet to accrue any real scratches on the case whatsoever, which is a rarity for review pieces that pass through our studio. How it stacks up versus their bold durability claims, I won't know for sure. Maybe jerry-rig everything could help me with that one. The brushed finish may help conceal this to an extent, and it is to be noted that this watch has seen less wrist time than similar alternatives like the Casio LCW, due to it not fitting me so well. That watch I was wearing not only in the allocated review wear time, but also in my own time too. Indeed, despite the lovely 9.5mm side profile, it's still too large for my wrist, with a 41mm diameter and an effective lug-to-lug of 53.7mm due to the inflexible end links. A strap change may reduce that slightly, though the awkward 23mm lug width will certainly limit your options. The closest I had was this chunky 22mm NATO, which plugged the gap quite well, but did look a bit out of place. I opted for this piece regardless, as it was about the smallest of those that I did like the look of. In fact, on an appropriate wrist, I think this could be a good looking and fairly versatile watch. The styling could see this one easily dressed up or down, depending on what the situation necessitates, with a simple, uncluttered design. It's got a fine vertically engraved dial, which is executed to a good standard considering the cost of the watch. It almost looks like a form of finely woven fabric, and the applied Citizen logo sits atop it very well, though it seems to rest within a rectangular cutout. I like the minimal amount of text here too. It keeps the piece clean and concise overall. While I like the handset, I'm not quite so keen on the rather stubby hour markers, which remind me a little of my cat's teeth, or at least the few he's got left. That being said, the luminescent slices that inhabit each of these areas do provide good low light visibility, with a rather pleasing turquoise colour to boot. Crucially, is there any evidence of the QC issues I'd experienced previously? Because that's ultimately what had left the sour taste in my mouth from last time. Well, the handset here appears clean for a budget watch, and to the human eye, there's no sign of any dust or dirt under the crystal. Second-hand alignment is also good this time, with it hitting or only narrowly missing the markers, something you probably wouldn't notice at all from a distance. Something that tends to be more noticeable is index misalignment. While a couple of the markers aren't quite spot on, they've definitely done a better job than the previous titanium model I looked at. With that one, the large 12 o'clock marker didn't align properly with the chapter ring, whereas here, it's not quite so inaccurate, so I suspect most people probably wouldn't notice it anyway. Still, the competing £200 titanium Casio that I reviewed earlier in the year had perfect alignment across the board. We'll come back to that one a bit later. One advantage that this piece does have over the likes of that watch is the water resistance. The screw back helps secure the watch to a decent 100 meters, which is the sweet spot for day-to-day usage. You should have no fears about getting the watch wet or water leaking into the innards, which is great for your peace of mind. You can even take that watch on holiday in the pool, no issues. The crown isn't screwed down, but functions well enough. The two ridged layers almost look like two crowns stacked atop one another, and it probably protrudes more than I'd like, but that's a nitpick. Thankfully, as expected at this price point, Citizen hasn't cut corners on the crystal, with a scratch-resistant sapphire piece positioned over the dial. This further adds to the durable theme that this watch has propagated so far. Within you have the E111M quartz movement, supporting eco-drive functionality. Of course, back in 1976, Citizen created the very first solar-powered analog watch, an important milestone that's come to dictate their market positioning almost 50 years later. Nowadays, the majority of their pieces house this technology, which removes the need for traditional battery replacements. While other brands have since concocted their own solar charging implementations, it doesn't mean that eco-drive isn't decent. I think this tech is the perfect complement to a quartz movement, which is supposed to be more functional than elegant anyway. Of course, it saves you money buying batteries in the long run too, whilst simultaneously being more environmentally friendly. Of course, you can get solar watches for much less elsewhere, though they often come with their respective trade-offs. A trade-off you perhaps make with this Citizen is the bracelet. Quality isn't the issue, as this titanium band comes with solid links throughout, including the end links, meaning it's both light and comfortable. The push-button clasp might be basic, but does work as intended, though the limited pair of micro-adjustment holes could be frustrating. Nevertheless, my main gripe is much more simple. The colour of the thing. You see, while still a matte silver, it's a much lighter tone that doesn't match that of the case. While not so noticeable at certain angles or in low light conditions, at times it really stands out and looks like it's been ripped from a completely different watch. I've seen this bracelet appear on a couple of their other watches too, so it appears to be a standardized design and not a very well integrated one at that. Perhaps the bracelet lacks the official Super Titanium coating and that's the reason for the colour change? Honestly, it's very difficult to tell without specialist equipment, though I'd hazard a guess that that could be the culprit. In the grand scheme of things, it's not a deal breaker and you can switch it out if required, though it is a bizarre choice on Citizen's part. A nice additional touch comes in the form of the Citizen packaging, which seems to vary a little depending on the model you choose. Typically you get this style of cylindrical container, which isn't too fancy but does make for a pleasing unboxing experience, giving an air of quality compared to some competing brands. I imagine a gift recipient would be pretty excited to unbox this, especially if they're not familiar with the Citizen brand. So, does my experience with this watch affect where I'd theoretically place them on a tier list today? Well, not really. It's difficult for me to choose this over the likes of the Casio I mentioned previously, which squeezes more functionality into a more compact package at the same retail price. The finishing on the case and hands of that one isn't as good as the Citizen, but the alignment is noticeably better and it has more features too. I also prefer the sunburst dial, though that is subjective. I think Citizen watches are pretty decent and the build quality seems solid too. They just don't have any good, solid watches for me, outside of this single field watch and some far more expensive JDM models. So I can't really place them much higher on my tier list, can I? In some people's tier list, they may be higher, and that's no problem. I just wish that they'd make some more small non-dress watches so that we can all try one. Either that or I need to get a season ticket for Mackey's. Why aren't you subscribed yet?
Only a fool wouldn't subscribe to Ben's Watch Club. Are you a fool? I thought not.